Ladies and gentlemen, evil does not always arrive dressed in black robes, lurking in the shadows. No, it often stands beside you, wearing a warm smile, whispering words of comfort. The most dangerous monsters are not the ones you see in the dark, but the ones you never suspect in the daylight. If you are to navigate this world safely, you must learn to recognize the warning signs. The red flags that separate a difficult person from a truly malicious one. Today I will give you six signals that, if ignored, could lead you into the grasp of something far worse than you ever imagined. A master of deception is not simply someone who tells a lie now and then. No, this is a person who builds their entire existence on falsehoods, weaving intricate stories to manipulate those around them. They do not lie for necessity, they lie because it is in their nature. Every word, every gesture is carefully calculated to serve their agenda. You might never realize it at first, because they are good, so very good, at making their lies sound like the absolute truth. At first they may charm you. They say all the right things, present themselves as someone trustworthy, someone who understands you. They study you, learning your weaknesses, your dreams, your fears, and then, once they have gathered enough information, the real game begins. They twist the truth, sometimes in the smallest of ways, omitting a detail here, exaggerating a fact there. You start to notice inconsistencies, things that don't quite add up, but when you question them, they don't admit fault. Instead, they make you doubt yourself. You must have misheard. That's not what I said. You're overthinking things. Slowly they bend your perception of reality. They gaslight you into questioning your own memory, your own instincts. They make you feel foolish for even suspecting them. And once they have you in that state, uncertain, vulnerable, second-guessing everything, you become easier to control. You see, a master deceiver doesn't just lie about trivial things. No. They create entire false narratives. They present themselves as the hero in every story, the misunderstood genius, the victim of an unfair world. They rewrite history in their favor, altering events to fit their needs. And if you catch them, if you bring undeniable proof before them, watch their reaction. They won't panic. They won't admit defeat. Instead, they will shift the blame, redirect the conversation, turn it back on you. Why are you so suspicious? Why are you always looking for the worst in people? Suddenly you find yourself defending your own sanity instead of confronting their deceit. But the greatest deception of all, they convince you that they care, that their lies are harmless or worse, that they are for your own good. They will apologize only when necessary, only when it benefits them. And even then, their words will be hollow, rehearsed, devoid of true remorse. A person like this is dangerous because they can make you believe anything. They can make you question your own truth, abandon your own instincts. And once they have succeeded, once they have pulled you into their web, they can do whatever they want, without ever having to lift a finger. The only way to escape such a person is to see them for what they truly are. And when you do not argue, do not seek justice, do not wait for them to change. They will not. Instead, walk away. Because the moment they realize you can no longer be deceived, you become their enemy. There is something deeply unsettling about a person who lacks empathy. It is not always obvious at first. They may seem normal, even charismatic. They may laugh at the right moments, nod when you speak, say the words that sound like concern, but look closer. Watch their eyes when someone else is in pain. There is no real connection, no genuine sorrow, no flicker of shared emotion. It is all an act, an imitation of what they believe emotions should look like. Empathy is what makes us human. It allows us to feel another person's joy and share in their suffering. It is what makes a friend offer comfort when you are down, what makes a stranger stop to help someone in need. But for those who lack it, emotions are nothing more than tools, weapons to be used for control and manipulation. They do not comfort out of kindness. They do it to maintain appearances. They do not apologize out of regret. They do it to keep their hold over you. You may notice small signs at first. A cruel joke at someone else's expense, masked as humor. A dismissive shrug when someone shares their struggles. A cold, detached response to tragedy. They are not moved by what should move them. They are indifferent to what should stir their heart. And when confronted, they do not understand why you are upset. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? They ask, as if pain, yours or anyone else's, is an inconvenience rather than something to be acknowledged. But it gets worse. When a person like this realizes that emotions are a weakness they can exploit, they begin to use them to their advantage. They study what makes people tick, what makes them hurt, what makes them doubt themselves, and then they wield that knowledge like a weapon. They will say the words they know will cut the deepest, then watch with cold amusement as you struggle to recover. They will feign concern, not to help, but to extract information they can later use against you. They will mirror your emotions, make you believe they understand you, only to discard you the moment you are no longer useful. And when real suffering occurs, when someone is truly broken, lost, or in despair, what do? They feel nothing. No sadness, no guilt, no need to reach out. They may pretend, of course. They may play the part of the supportive friend, the grieving partner, the concerned family member. But if you look closely, you will see the cracks in their performance. The rehearsed words, the mechanical gestures, the lack of genuine feeling, pain. Do not ask, "How can I help?" but instead, "How can I use this?" Beware the ones who do not feel. They will never hesitate to hurt you. A puppet master does not control with force, they control with precision. Their power is not in physical strength, but in psychological warfare. They do not need chains to bind you because their greatest tool is the invisible string they tie around your mind, your emotions, your very sense of self. The worst part? You may not even realize you are being controlled until it is too late. They begin with small things, subtle suggestions that feel like choices, a word of advice that seems harmless, a gentle nudge in a certain direction. You don't need to see them. They don't treat you right anyway. I just think you'd be happier if you listened to me. I only want what's best for you. Their words carry a tone of concern, of wisdom. You may even feel grateful for their guidance. But over time, something changes. You start second-guessing yourself. You hesitate before making decisions, wondering what they will think. You feel guilty for things that never used to bother you. Slowly, they make you believe that your choices, your thoughts, your emotions are not entirely your own. And once they have that foothold, they push further. The guilt becomes a constant presence. They make you feel selfish for standing up for yourself. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. They turn your kindness against you, twisting it into obligation. You begin to apologize for things you shouldn't have to apologize for. You feel the need to explain yourself constantly, to seek their approval before acting. And even when you comply, even when you bend to their will, it is never enough. They know exactly which buttons to press. They can make you feel loved one moment and worthless the next. If you ever try to break free, they will remind you of all the times they helped you, all the ways they were there when no one else was. They rewrite history, making themselves the hero of every story. And if that does not work, they use fear. They imply that without them you will fail, that you are too weak, too lost, too incapable on your own. But here's the truth they don't want you to see. You are constantly walking on eggshells around someone. If you feel drained, uncertain, or as if your life is no longer truly yours, stop and ask yourself, who is pulling the strings? A true friend, a true partner, a true ally does not demand control. They do not use guilt or fear to keep you close, and anyone who does is not your protector. They are your captor. And the only way to win their game is to refuse to play. There is something disturbingly familiar about those who always see themselves as the victim. At first you may sympathize with them. Their stories are tragic. Their pain seems real. They tell you about how the world has been unfair, how people have wronged them, how they have never been given the respect they deserve. And you listen. You comfort. You try to be the person who understands them when no one else does. But over time, a pattern begins to emerge. One you cannot ignore. No matter what happens, it is never their fault. They are never responsible for their failures, never accountable for their mistakes. If they lose a job, it was because their boss was jealous. If they have a falling out with a friend, it was because the friend betrayed them. If their relationship ends, it was because the other person was selfish, ungrateful. There is always an excuse, always a reason that paints them as the innocent party. And yet if you look closely, you will notice that they are the common denominator in every single disaster. At first you may try to help them see the truth. You may gently point out inconsistencies in their stories, suggest that perhaps they played a role in what happened. But the moment you do, everything changes. Suddenly you are the enemy. They accuse you of taking the other side, of not understanding them. I thought you were different, they say, their voice dripping with disappointment. And in that moment you realize that their so-called suffering is not about truth. It is about control. They weaponize their victimhood, using it to manipulate those around them. When they want sympathy, they tell sob stories. When they want to avoid consequences, they blame others. When they want power over you, they make you feel guilty for not doing enough. And if you ever dare to stand up for yourself, they flip the script entirely, painting you as the villain. After everything I've been through, how could you treat me like this? They ask, turning your kindness against you. And yet, despite all their complaints, they never seek real solutions. They do not try to change, to grow, to improve. Why? Because being the victim benefits them. It allows them to escape responsibility. It allows them to manipulate people into doing what they want. It allows them to justify their toxic behavior without ever looking in the mirror. The truth is, these people are not helpless. They are not misunderstood. Do not let their victimhood become your burden. Some people do not want to be saved. They only want someone to blame. And the moment you refuse to be that person, they will find another. Cruelty is a trait that rarely announces itself loudly. It does not always take the form of blatant violence or outright malice. Sometimes it hides in sarcasm, in a smirk, in the smallest flicker of enjoyment at someone else's suffering. The person who harbors it does not always strike with force. They wound with words, with silence, with carefully chosen moments of betrayal. If you look closely, you will see the pattern. They enjoy watching others fall. At first, their cruelty may seem harmless, a joke at someone's expense, a teasing remark that lingers just a little too long. You tell yourself they didn't mean it that way. Maybe you even laugh along because that is what everyone else is doing. But deep down, there is an unease you cannot shake. Something in their tone, in their expression, tells you that this is more than just humor. This is something darker. Then you notice that their jokes always have a target, and more often than not, that target is someone weaker, someone vulnerable. They mock those who are struggling. They belittle those who do not fight back. They take pleasure in making others uncomfortable. When someone reacts, they dismiss it with a wave of their hand. Don't be so sensitive. But watch their eyes when they say it. There is no regret. No concern, only satisfaction. Cruel people thrive on control. They push boundaries, testing how far they can go before someone stops them. If no one does, they escalate. The insults become sharper, the manipulation more calculated. They will undermine your confidence, make you doubt your worth, and if you confront them, they will turn it back on you. I was just being honest. You're overreacting. I guess you can't take a joke. But the worst kind of cruelty? It is the quiet kind. The kind that comes not in words, but in silence. They see someone suffering and do nothing. They hear someone cry and feel nothing. They stand by as others are torn apart and think nothing. Their indifference is not accidental. It is intentional. Because to them, pain is not a tragedy. It is entertainment. These are the people who enjoy power over others. The ones who get a thrill out of making someone flinch, who revel in the discomfort of those around them. They may hide it well, disguising their cruelty under charm, intelligence, even kindness. But in unguarded moments, when they think no one is watching, the truth slips through. The pleasure in another's failure. The smirk at someone's misfortune, a small triumphant glint in their eyes when they know they have wounded someone. Do not dismiss cruelty, no matter how subtle it seems. Do not excuse it, justify it, or try to soften it with understanding. Because cruelty, once tolerated, only grows, and those who enjoy hurting others will never stop until they find someone who refuses to play their game. Be that person. Walk away and never look back. There is something unsettling about a person who seems hollow, as if there is nothing real beneath the surface. They speak the right words, they move in the right ways, but something feels off. You cannot quite place it at first. You tell yourself you are imagining things, and yet the feeling lingers, the sense that you are not interacting with a person, but with a reflection of what they think a person should be. These individuals are masters of mimicry. They watch others carefully, studying their expressions, their emotions, their reactions. They learn what to say to evoke trust, what gestures to use to appear warm, what responses to give to seem human. But their emotions are not real. Their kindness is not genuine. It is all a performance, rehearsed and refined to perfection. Spend enough time with them and you will notice the cracks. Their reactions sometimes seem delayed, as if they are processing how they should respond, rather than feeling the moment naturally. Their laughter does not always reach their eyes. Their words of comfort, though well-crafted, lack true warmth. It is not that they are incapable of emotion. They simply do not experience it the way others do. They understand love, sorrow, joy, and fear as concepts, but not as lived experiences. And because they do not feel them deeply, they do not value them. This makes them dangerous. A person who does not truly feel cannot truly care. They may say they love you, but love is just a word to them, an idea rather than a bond. They may claim loyalty, but loyalty is merely a tool, not a principle. And when the mask slips, even for a second, what you see is something cold and calculating. There is no remorse, no hesitation, no genuine regret. Just a blankness where a soul should be. What makes them so insidious is that they are not always cruel. In fact, they can be some of the most charming people you will ever meet. They know how to present themselves as ideal friends, partners, mentors. They tell you what you want to hear, become what you need them to be. But everything they do has a purpose. They do not give without expecting something in return. They do not form connections for the sake of connection. Every interaction is a means to an end, every relationship a tool to be used. And when you are no longer useful, they discard you, sometimes abruptly, sometimes subtly. But one day you will realize that the person who once seemed so invested in you is suddenly distant, indifferent. Because to them you were never truly a person. You were an asset, a stepping stone, a character in the story they were writing for themselves. Do not be fooled by the mask. When someone feels empty inside, they will never hesitate to empty others. And if you ever sense that someone is merely playing the role of a human being, trust that instinct. Step away before you become just another part of their script. Evil does not always appear as a monstrous figure lurking in the shadows. Sometimes it wears a friendly face, speaks in a calm voice, and smiles in a way that makes you feel safe. But beneath that mask lies something far more dangerous than outright hostility. Something cold, calculating, and entirely devoid of conscience. The most terrifying thing about these individuals is not their cruelty, nor their manipulation, but their complete lack of guilt. Most people, when they hurt others, feel something: regret, shame, even hesitation before crossing a moral line. But these people, they feel nothing. No remorse for their lies, no guilt for their betrayals, no second thoughts when they destroy someone's trust, their spirit, their very life. It is not that they do not understand the pain they cause. They understand it perfectly. They just do not care. You may see this in subtle ways at first. When they hurt someone, they do not apologize unless it benefits them. And when they do, their words are hollow, rehearsed, lacking any true sincerity. Watch their actions, not their words. They may say they feel bad, but they will repeat the same behavior again and again, because in reality, they do not see wrongdoing as something to regret. They see it as something to refine. A mistake, to them, is not an ethical failure. It is a miscalculation. Something they must improve upon to be more efficient next time. They do not fear consequences the way normal people do. They do not lose sleep over the harm they inflict. If caught, they do not reflect on their actions. Instead, they shift blame, rewrite history, twist the narrative so that they are either the victim or the hero. You may confront them with undeniable proof, only to watch as they calmly deny, deflect, or even laugh at the very idea of accountability, because in their minds, rules are for others. Morality is a game they have learned how to play. Perhaps the most chilling thing about them is their ability to mimic emotions they do not feel. They know how to cry without shedding a single tear, how to feign concern without an ounce of true compassion. They wear guilt like a costume when necessary, only to discard it the moment the curtain falls. This is what makes them so dangerous. There is no real substance beneath the illusion. You cannot appeal to their conscience because they have none. You cannot reason with their morality because it does not exist. The only thing they understand is power. They manipulate not out of necessity but because they enjoy it. They destroy not out of desperation, but because it gives them a sense of control. And if you allow them into your life, they will drain you, use you, and discard you without a second thought. There is no redemption for those who do not believe they need it. The only way to win against such a person is not to play their game. Walk away and do not look back. Because to them, your suffering was never an accident. It was always the goal.